You can close that, because you got real time, baby. This is Coda Radio, episode 142 for February 23rd, 2015. Hi everyone, and welcome to Coda Radio, Jupiter Broadcasting's weekly talk show, taking a pragmatic look at the art and business of software development and related technologies. This episode is brought to you by our two fine sponsors, DigitalOcean and Linux Academy. I'll tell you more about those great sponsors as this here show goes on. My name is Chris, and joining us every single week is our excellent host, established on the East Coast, Mr. Michael Dominic. Well, darn near every week. Hey there, Mr. Dominic.
Hey, listen, you know...
I got to come up with a new intro now. Look at you, made me do.
See, I made a liar out of you, Chris.
You don't even know the half of it. You don't even know. So this week, I am plagued by two horrible things that have happened, but that are also good, really good things, but kind of horrible. Which would you like to hear about, in which order? One involves you, and one does not involve you at all. You just tell me which one you'd prefer to have towards the end. Do you want the one that involves you last? Because it's dramatic, it's intense.
All right. Well, yeah. Let's do the little disaster first. Okay. Obviously.
So yesterday we had a Sunday on the big show. We had a super successful 5-hour-long live stream from Scale. You know, the Southern California Linux Expo 13X. It was great. We had people stop by. We played like a dozen interviews, plus we had 3 or 4 impromptu interviews on the live stream, and I recorded like 4.5 hours of it. And I thought, let's put that out. Let's let people watch that. Well, it turns out a 4.5-hour 720p file, even crunched super down with X264, still almost 5 gigabytes, 4.7 gigabytes. 4.7 gigabytes. So it turns out pretty much every media platform out there craps itself, except for Scale Engine, when you try to upload a 4.7 gigabyte file. So getting up to YouTube took till about 11 o'clock at night last night. Then it took till 1 a.m. to process it. So then I could post it just for our... Because at that point, then I had the other problem of distributing almost a 5 gigabyte file. I literally couldn't pay for that. So what I did is I put it out for our patrons over at patreon.com/today. So they have the full 4.5 hour unedited everything. They get to see the trolling. They get to see when things go break and we cover. They get to see everything. The stuff we were supposed to cut out of the interviews that when goes in the master show will be cut out of the interviews. That's available for our patrons right now, but that's the only place I could put it right now. Now I'm going to distribute it later in the week. Long story short, I ended up sleeping at the studio last night. I haven't been home since the Linux Action Show live stream. I haven't even taken a shower. I have changed all my clothes, so that's good. I have a change of clothes here. But, yeah, so that's been my day so far, is it turns out I have an air mattress here that's loud, and when you move around, it makes noise, and that wakes me up. So that was my morning and my evening. But here's the other thing, Mr. Dominic. I don't know if you noticed this, but when you called in CPA last week, I had something ready to go, kind of out of the gate. I don't know if you noticed this, but see, here at Jupiter Broadcasting, we have been preparing for a week that has been hereby known as the Beardpocalypse. The Beardpocalypse. Teespring.com/nobeard. And we have no editor this week. We are running raw dog here at the Jupiter Broadcasting Network. So we prepared in advance some submissions from the best of clips we got back from the holidays and new ones that people have continued to submit since then. And so we put together some best of episodes for the shows that are going to air while Rekai was out. So we had a Coda Radio in the can, ready to go. So when you had to call in sick, well, okay, we got a cover episode. But here's the thing, Mr. Dominic. That means there's nobody here to edit right now. You see where I'm going with this? I gotta edit this thing. I gotta copy it over the network, and then I gotta like set up a Final Cut editing profile and like edit, Chris, and then I gotta encode it and upload it, and then put it on YouTube. I gotta upload to YouTube.
Shocking revelation.
Yeah.
I wasn't sick. Me and Rikai conspired against you.
Oh my god!
This was all a conspiracy to get you off of free software.
Oh my gosh. So, anyways, yeah. So the beard apocalypse. Oh.
I'm glad you had a good time.
Oh, it was good. Yeah, it was good.
Yeah.
It was good. How are you doing, Mr. Dominic? How's your life?
I'm crazy busy, but with crap. It's like I've become a professional. What do you call a guy who like shovels horse shit?
Oh, I believe a manure scooper, right?
I call myself a manure engineer.
Yeah, I was gonna say you should fancy it up a little bit, like a manure deep dive specialist.
I don't want to be a deep dive specialist. Have you ever seen that extra normal video with the programmer who retires to go shovel pig shit?
Are you talking about that UFO flight that just crashed in Canada?
No, what?
Oh, okay.
Wait, what?
You didn't hear about that?
No.
Yeah, you could Google that after the show.
Okay. There's a very funny extra normal video about a guy being lectured by NoSQL hipsters who decides to just retire and shovel pig shit.
Actually, doesn't sound so bad.
No, it really doesn't. Cholera's a bitch, but I think I could deal with it.
No, I know what you do to prevent that. You just eat a lot of vegetables. Takes care of that.
I hate vegetables.
Yeah. Hey, we got a little bit of feedback. Do you want to do that real quick? Just a couple. I got one that I think is has,
do it.
I think one. You know how I'm a big mover of the dial. You know that expression.
I heard that you're an influencer.
Yeah, I say that. Yeah, I'm a. What do they call that? A think influencer on topics of relevant interest to a dynamic social graph of people. And so when new information comes into that graph and I parse it amongst my big data repositories, Hadoop, then I come out.
Chris, I'm vomiting in my mouth right now.
Okay.
So if you eat, yeah.
Sorry. So this is the last email on this subject on the Coda Radio program. Are you ready for this, Mr. Dominic? The last.
I hope it's not Python and Ruby. Really hope it's not. But I feel like I'm wrong.
You already know it is. You already know it is. All right, so but here it is. Then we're done. Don't you feel good about that? Code Carnage writes in. He says, the last Python/Ruby post Chris last ever needs to read. And I agree. So I've read all the threads, and I have these things to say. They essentially, all the threads, all the emails, they all boil down to this. Choose the best language for what you want to do. Choose the language for which you have support. And choose any language to start with. Starting is what's most important, right? All solid, 100% solid advice. All advice that your Coda Radio program has echoed. But for some reason, that stuff hasn't resonated with me. I tell you what, Mr. Dominic, it just hasn't resonated with me. And so he goes on to say, while those points are generally quite sound for most people, they're mostly a secondary concern to you. He's talking to me. Chris Lass, your circumstances are unique. And see, that made me feel fancy when he said that. So I'm like, okay, now you got my attention. He says, you're a podcaster with a substantial audience. And now I'm like, oh, you're making me blush. He says, more than anything else, your effort to learn a language is, wait for it, content. The interest your decision has attracted just proves the point that there's a lot of demand for this content amongst your audience. Just like any other content, learning to code should satisfy your current audience and attract more viewers. So, Mr. Dominic, with that in mind, he's
going C#.
Python is more likely to be picked up by beginners. Python is more likely to be taught to beginners. Python is used in more fields than Ruby. Python is probably the most popular language used by your audience across multiple shows. Python users are more passionate about spreading the gospel of Python, and Python doesn't carry as much baggage, as Ruby. Cough, cough, hipster. I don't think I need to spell out each of these factors relates to learning a language as content. Maybe somebody come out to content-focused argument for Ruby. But I agree, he says, too long, do not read Python. Got to do it. And I agree. You know what? For the audience,
what?
I think he's right. If I'm going to learn something and share my story on the shows, it should be something that is something the audience is into. Ergo, I think it should be Python. Why not? It's not a bad language anyways, and it helps me tip the scale.
Well, all right, fair enough. But you know what I noticed through this whole little argument for like a month now? No one wrote in Java or anything like that.
Yeah.
It's been like Python, Ruby, and there was a couple Go guys. I don't know if you saw those. Yeah, I think there was like one Rust guy.
Yeah, and about once every week we get a Perl guy.
Hey man, they're still here.
We get a Pearl guy from time to time. Hey, you know what? I'm going to take a break right here because you know why? Because it's just too perfect. Linux Academy. Go over to linuxacademy.com/coders. They're sponsors of the Linux. Oh, I've been here since the Linux Action Show. They're sponsors of the Coder Radio program. They actually do not sponsor the Linux Action Show, but I think we gave them a plug in that live stream. Anyways. I know, and I think I'm sure we said go to linuxacademy.com/coders because that's where you go to get the Coder Radio discount and support your favorite Coder Radio program. And here's why I can say, like, all right, you know what, I'm going to do Python, and I'm not a crazy person. I don't just flip flop like well, you know who. But no, it's because I have my boys over at Linux Academy, and they got my back. Look at right there. I logged into my Linux Academy course here, and boom, Introduction to Python on Linux. No, not a problem. Total module length, 2 hours, 30 minutes. And by the end of it, I can do a lab where I create a backup script using Python. And the reason why I thought that was actually kind of cool is that's kind of my old wheelhouse. That's what I would have done in Bash with probably like rsync and SSH and all that crap back in my sysadmin days. So the fact that sort of the end result is to go create a backup script, which is where my head used to be when I was writing these kinds of things, is perfect for me. They got courseware on Ruby, too. They got courseware on all kinds of stuff. They're adding new stuff constantly. And, in fact, coming up really soon, this is just a little behind-the-scenes thing. Hopefully they don't mind me telling you guys this. But they are about to do a big giveaway on April 16th. It's their largest giveaway ever. They're also going to roll out new features and content and giveaways when that comes out. So go check it out. They're going to have a live stream. It's going to be their largest content announcement ever, a major core feature release, and a new summer course roadmap coming up very soon. So check it out. It'll be on April 16th. Go to linuxacademy.com/coders to get started. So much great content. And I love, too, that because they're super passionate about this content, they're really good about staying current. So as the projects that you know and love change, or the projects that we've even covered right here on the show change, they adapt their courseware. Plus, they have 7+ Linux distributions you can just choose from, and that will also automatically adjust the courseware and the lab VMs that spin up for you. And their AWS stuff is bar none. Linux Academy doesn't try to do everything from, like, fixture sync to Photoshop. They focus in on this kind of content, this core stuff, Linux, AWS, OpenStack, the whole DevOps world, Android development. They've got a great course over there. Check out all of it. Go start by going to linuxacademy.com/coders. And a big thanks to Linux Academy for sponsoring the Coder Radio program. Can't wait to start now I know. Now I'm going to do a Python course. Are you okay, Mr. Dominic? Or you don't want to like have a divorce now or anything, do you?
You know what? I can't even look at you right now.
That's all right. Maybe you can help Mr. Greta or Goretta or whatever his name is, because I feel like this might be in your wheelhouse. Get ready to kick some ass, Mr. Dominic. He says, I'm sure this has probably already come up, and maybe you've already expressed your experience with this, but I couldn't find another subject on this. My situation is I do an occasional freelance work for a friend and a full-time PHP development for a larger, around 20 employees, local company. I know my friend's financial situation isn't great, so I often don't charge him for small jobs. Like running updates on his server. Okay. Even so, for any paid work, he usually pays the same day. By contrast, a larger company usually takes 2 to 3 weeks to pay any invoices, ignoring my request to be paid within 14 days that's included in the invoices. I often submit them before the date on the invoice in hope that they'll at least be in their system soon enough to pay me on time. Frankly, this has a negative effect on my motivation, especially when they ask me to do it overtime yet have not responded to my questions about overtime pay. I don't know if I'm being unreasonable here. Any tips or feedback would be much appreciated. Ooh, what do you think, Mr. Dominic? Ooh.
Yeah, it's going to be hard to answer you. I mean, some of it depends on your state, but if you're a contractor, you're generally not entitled to overtime, unemployment, or any of that kind of stuff. So you're not protected by employment laws at all, right?
No, it would be up to you to have your own after-hours rate.
Right. The other thing is, I don't know how, the bigger the company, the less they care about the terms of your contract in terms of payment turnaround, right?
Yeah. So I mean,
2 to 3 weeks isn't that bad. To be honest with you.
So Jupiter Broadcasting for our invoicing has a 30-day payment window, and it would not be uncommon to have invoices out 90 days.
Right. I mean, I used to do a lot of Net 15, and even that really just meant 60, 90 days, right?
Yeah, and I've heard and I have heard from other podcasters that they have literally had 6-month payment cycle when because some of it, especially for advertising and podcasts, and it could be the same kind of thing for development budgets. It comes from a certain budget set, and they have that certain money at a certain time, and so they pay when they have that money. They don't give a crap what your date is, and what are you gonna do?
Right, and the other thing is, right, the larger the company, the more common the work you do is. You don't have a whole lot.
As an IT contractor, I was lucky that my wife had previous experience as a collections agent. So when contracts would be late, she knew sort of what things to say, what buttons to push, and what steps to take, and how to sort of escalate, maybe like a finance charge for late payments and things like that.
Yeah, that stuff. I tried the whole like interest thing. If it was whatever, like 30 days late, I think I wanted to charge interest. But sometimes they don't care, or sometimes it ends up not being worth it because it kind of ruffles too many feathers. That sucks. Accounts receivable basically blows, right? Because what's going to happen is the more you need the money and the more you show you need it, the less likely they are to pay you, especially if they're not being scrupulous, right? Because then they'll know they have a negotiating position now. So I don't know, Chris, if you've ever had anything like that, but I remember when I was first freelancing, I had a situation like that. Like once you tip your hand that you actually need the money, that's the worst thing you could ever do.
Yeah, I unfortunately, my advice for this is if you cannot financially structure yourself so that you can't ride out these gaps, then this is probably not the right career path for you, because fundamentally managing this is going to be one of the key things, and also being able to fundamentally manage this and not constantly stress out about it is also going to be a key thing, especially if you have a partner, because they're also going to have to be on board with all of this kind of these gaps in payments. I want to circle back though on the asking for overtime. That also sort of demonstrates your approach is kind of wrong. You don't go to them and ask them for overtime. If you're a contractor and they are hiring you at an hourly rate, then you can decide if you're going to have an hourly after hours rate, and you just need to make sure that you price yourself into something that they'll still pay, but you feel is fair to your time. You don't ask them for overtime. If you're a contractor, you tell them what the rate is.
And what I would probably add to that is, right, there's always problems on both sides of the equation in most cases. I mean, if these people just don't want to pay you, period, that's totally on them, right? But, if you are working a lot of nights and weekends, that's probably indicative of a, did you give an overly optimistic estimate to get the contract? Did you, I
would also say, he says it's a larger, around 20 employee company.
That's not very big.
And you know what? That probably also means
they don't have the money.
Yeah, at around 20 employees, they're constantly cash strapped.
So the big thing is, right, big companies always have the money, but there's always a like an accountant who's like, I'm not doing I literally, Chris, had this happen a couple years ago. An accountant told me, we are not writing out a check. We are not doing a manual, they call it a journal entry. You're waiting they use some sort of like electronic thing to print a check from Chase Bank.
Right,
You're waiting for that. I am not taking responsibility for this entry.
Right.
And what was I going to do?
It's it's just so funny because so that's the really frustrating thing is the smaller companies have the efficiency where they'll just cut a check, but they don't have the fluidity of funds. The bigger companies have the funds, but they have the deferral bureaucratic system where nobody wants to take the blame. Nobody wants to be the one that puts that name on the check. Let the system do it. Let the expense account pay it from the system. We'll ship you a check. Yeah, sorry, it's going to take an extra 2 weeks.
Right, and that's what happens. Like I don't know, unless Chris has a better answer. This is a problem I think that's just like if you're freelancing, you're consulting, if you're dealing with little companies, you're always going to have the risk of they could go insolvent like that. And two, if you're dealing with big companies, they really don't care, right? Like they're going to follow their procedure because that person doesn't want to lose this job.
If it's a really big deal for you, like if it's a matter of pride in your motivation, you could do a fee after 30 days.
What does work too.
What are you going to make? $5, and you're just going to look like
a. And it seems petty. And next time there's work, they're not going to want to talk to you.
Yeah.
I mean, the one thing I would ask is, and we don't know this, Chris, but if you're doing like a fixed contract and you have like a milestone set up, you'll deliver this demo by this date. You could have it in the contract that you stop working until you receive the payment. That's risky too because that automatically puts you in kind of a confrontational position. But if you're just doing straight hourly and like invoicing every, I don't know, I guess 30 days or whatever you're doing, that's super hard.
Also, you could also look at other ways of invoicing. I don't know if you're just like, are you actually printing out and sending them? Probably not.
I doubt that.
FreshBooks, one of the nice things about FreshBooks is they'll tell you, based on like link tracking, when the client has viewed the invoice, so you at least have an idea that they've seen it.
Yeah, I mean, you're probably sending PDF invoice. I mean, even like LibreOffice, you can make a nice looking invoice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a difficult thing, Mr. Gata, but I think.
Good luck. That is like the core problem of going like independent.
Yeah, really like the other. So what you have to do is be able to write out the late payments which happen. Then which also means you have to be able to control yourself when you get a lot of money that comes in because somebody finally paid. And then the other thing you have to be able to do is figure out that line between how many clients do I need to make sure I have at least enough money coming in, but still have enough capacity to take on a big project from time to time to make that money to buy that thing I've got to buy or pay for that thing I've got to pay for. And that's the other side of it that is really hard of the money.
Oh, and the other, just to add one more point, right? It's super easy to like oversell, to say, oh, well, we'll just bring in more work. I'll just, stack clients. But one thing to keep in mind, you don't have that protection of being an employee. So if you screw up a job, they don't have to pay you. And it's up to you to sue them, right? It's not, and it really depends on your state, but the state's not going to hold a gun to their head and say, you have to pay, because they could say, well, you were late. That's a breach of contract. You're done. So
yeah, and thankfully, that'll happen. It actually seriously depends on the company. Like
I've never had someone go that far, but I've had like we want to make this change and we think it is somehow implied in the scope, right? That's always my favorite theme. Implied flexibility. Yeah, and again, if you're doing hourly, you're saving yourself a lot of pain. But
geez, that's a nice gray area.
Yeah, right. The language of the kind. Yeah. So we should move on from this. I know a lot of people just aren't interested, but
okay. All right. Well, before we change any big topics, I'll mention something that really worked out great for us over the whole Sunday 5-hour stream period, and that is our next sponsor, DigitalOcean. So DigitalOcean is a simple cloud hosting provider dedicated to offering the most intuitive and easy way for you to spin up a server. That's where they start, but then they back that with some amazingly powerful hardware, all SSD drives, tier 1 bandwidth at great data centers all over the world. I'll tell you more about it in a second. But I have to tell you, from my experience just this weekend, it was unbelievable. It was unstoppable. We were sending a constant 720p high-definition stream from the floor of Scale 13X. It was he got a 96 megabit up connection, I believe it was. So we bounced that signal off of a DigitalOcean droplet into the receiver software here in the studio. We're going to do a whole segment on how we did all of this in a future episode, all powered by Linux with DigitalOcean sitting there running perfectly the entire time, just like a rock. And so we had a 5-hour stream, and it was just flawless. It's great because the way it works is you never have to worry about overages or how much bandwidth you're using. You can get started in less than 55 seconds, and pricing plans start only $5 a month. And you get 512 megabytes of RAM, a 20 gigabyte SSD, 1 CPU, and a terabyte of transfer. So I knew I was set. I was fine. There's no problem to handle this. And they have data center locations in New York, San Francisco, Singapore, Amsterdam, and London. So we spun ours up in, of course, San Francisco, because Seattle, here on the West Coast, and he was down at the Southern California Linux Expo in LA. So it was kind of an obvious choice, and it made for just an amazing connection. I love that flexibility about DigitalOcean. And then it all is powered by this, or it's all controlled. It's all powered by Linux, but it's all controlled by this amazing control panel. It's very intuitive, and you can even replicate the functionality on a larger scale with DigitalOcean's straightforward API. So you got apps and integrations with your OS. And this is a really nice thing too, because Lois Lane? Noah is on location at Scale, and if he needed to, he could fire up one of there's several really, really great Android apps available to manage, also for iOS, but he has Android, to manage your DigitalOcean droplets. And you can find out more in their community section and check them out, because they're really good. And he could, if he needed to, restart the droplet or relaunch a process from his phone, taking advantage of people that have already used DigitalOcean's great API. And then later on, if we were really going to get slick and we needed to provision multiple servers for streams, we could script it all using that API. It's so cool. And you can get it right now for free for 2 months if you use our promo code CODERDIGITAL. CODERDIGITAL, one word. CODERDIGITAL, apply that to your account. You get a $10 credit. You can try out the $5 rig, 2 months, absolutely free. So many things you can do, and they have one-click installations too to make it even easier. And then to really get you set up, they have a bunch of amazing tutorials. I mean, really, really, really top-notch stuff because they've paid people too. I mean, it's some of the curated best content. They have editors. It's really neat. DigitalOcean.com. Use the promo code CODERDIGITAL and just go get started and try it out. Coder Digital, get you a $10 credit. Big thanks to DigitalOcean for sponsoring the Coder Radio program. Now, Mr. Dominic, I have a couple things I wanted to talk to you. I don't know if you had anything you wanted to talk to me about. It's been a couple of weeks since we caught up. A couple of things have happened since you've been gone. I'm going to throw 2 topics out there, and you can punt both or pick one. Number 1, BQ actually sold like 12,000 or something Ubuntu devices, like a whole bunch of, not 12, a whole bunch of Ubuntu devices.
Yes.
Topic number 2, Superfish and Lenovo. Oh my gosh, what the hell? Which one?
Yeah, I mean, okay, so the Superfish thing, right? I think that's been covered to death. I don't think we really need to talk about it. Right. As always, I don't like to buy things that are from not the U.S. because I'm crazy.
Right.
Yeah, that's what people say. But I mean, everybody puts spyware on everything these days, so I guess you're screwed.
Yeah. I know. I don't think everybody does do that. I don't believe everybody does do that. I don't think Apple or System 76 do that. I don't know about Dell or HP, but I hope not. Maybe they do.
I guess you're right. You know what? That's true because I would feel. Well, okay. At what point is crapware spyware? Right? Like.
I actually kind of wish it hadn't got labeled spyware because that's not really.
What it was.
What really the problem is other people could take advantage of it to also misrepresent who they are. What the fundamental problem is it allowed for, once you know about it, it allows for anybody to kind of exploit it. We covered it on TechSnap.
Well, and it was super evil, right? Like, even if you wipe the machine, it comes back on. Like,
the other thing they're doing is they're analyzing what you're looking at to derive the ad results they were sending you.
Yeah, I don't.
And then one thing, before we totally get off it, just the one thing I wanted to point out that I thought was interesting from this show is, you know what? We have it linked in the show notes. There is a post on who funds Superfish. Surprise, they got offices in Palo Alto, California, also offices in Israel. They have venture funding from pretty much a lot of the well-known Silicon Valley startups. They have an entry on Crunchbase. It tells you more about that. They are They are one of many companies that have cropped up in the last 8 or 9 years that are just collecting a whole bunch of crap and getting backed by VC funders because they think it's this great way to get to get in there. Also, somebody else who funds this is a guy, Draper Fisher Juverston. I'm not even sure how you say that, but he's the co-founder. He also has investments in Coinbase. So there's a lot of big names behind this. So it's not just Lenovo that's using it, but there's also a lot of big names in Silicon Valley that are funding it. And I think that's an interesting angle to it.
Yeah, maybe I'm a little old-fashioned. I really wish I bought a box, like a computer, right? And it was just the parts, the hardware, whatever limited warranty I get for 30 days, and that was it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wouldn't that be nice? Like, no, I don't need even like, okay, because Superfish is super evil, right? But like, I don't need your Dell special DVD burning toolkit. Really?
Right.
If I wanted a Windows box, just give me a Windows box. I kind of feel like the most surprising thing to me about this is that it didn't happen earlier or didn't get caught earlier.
I guess so. That isn't. Well, they only did it for a limited time.
I don't know. I feel like we're going to see more stuff like this because, but we can move on.
All right. Well, because I'm curious. Do you want to talk about this just real quickly? This Ubuntu phone thing, because I don't think we've talked.
I would love to discuss.
So they sold out on their first flash sale.
Mm-hmm.
And it is. It's not like a doorbuster phone. It's everybody's hardware specs kind of looking forward to the next one. But otherwise, seems to be like it's been pretty well received. It was just demoed at scale a little bit, and I think it's going to be demoed at Mobile World Congress this week. What do you think? Any thoughts since the release? Does it change your opinion about it at all?
Not even a little.
Oh!
So, okay. It looks pretty. I would consider possibly getting one day. I don't still know why a normal person would buy this over an Android phone.
Yeah, okay. I could agree with that, and I don't know if I have an answer for you. Maybe, yeah, I don't know. I couldn't tell you. Why would
Right.
you? Why would you?
Because there's Android phones at every price bracket. If you really want to go, first of all, this is not a cheap device, right? It's what is it, 170 euros? Which I don't know what the conversion
It's
is.
not bad.
Well, that's not like low end affordable.
Okay.
To me, that's not,
Yeah.
my
Yeah.
mom goes to the store and buys it out of pocket kind of affordable.
Yeah. No, I agree with that.
I kind of don't get it.
Here's what's not sitting right with me. Over the weekend, I think it was this weekend, Forbes ran an article saying that Canonical now sees widespread adoption of the Internet of Things platform Ubuntu Snappy. Now, I actually think Ubuntu Snappy is a pretty great product, a good idea. It's like 3 weeks old, though. It's not seen wide industry adoption. It's seen some big pickups in some good places, for sure. But it's not wide industry adoption. I guess that to me makes it sound like it's kind of become like an industry standard, it's more like a few great places now run it. And the other thing about that story that bothers me is, and we're hearing it over and over again, is they're spinning all of the work we developed to create a snapshot update for a carrier-grade device, we are now applying to the operating system. And I guess they're trying to spin this whole thing like all this time we've spent doing this, it's all been worth it because we've made this better over here. And really what Ubuntu Snappy to me appears to be is sort of this knee-jerk reaction to Core OS. Like, they thought they had something called Ubuntu Core before that was for running virtual machines, and they thought they nailed it then because they thought it was all going to be in virtualization, and they just sort of built it, like during the 6.0 era of Ubuntu, and they just kind of left it. And then Core OS comes along and says, well, hey, how about we do a rolling base operating system and we containerize all the applications so that way they don't break constantly. And then, boom, all of a sudden Core OS starts getting adopted. Rackspace goes all in on Core OS. DigitalOcean goes all in on Core OS. And Ubuntu goes, whoa. Well, here's Ubuntu Snappy. And then the way they spin the story as, we've taken the lessons we've learned from making the phone and we've brought it to the server. And it's partially maybe true, I guess. But what it really kind of feels...
It's truthy, right? It's like, oh, we sold out on our flash sale of only a couple thousand devices. It's like, okay. It all seems like... I don't know, to their credit, Canonical has a really, really good way of spinning PR. Like, really well.
Mm-hmm.
Because the headline, I'm just kind of Googling around while you're talking. Ubuntu phone sells out. How many did they make?
Right. I've actually heard, and I do not know if this is true at all, some people, by checking the order numbers, and they think this is probably wrong, some people said 600, but I'm sure that's really wrong. I'm sure that's super wrong.
I'm sure that's too low, but I bet you it's, a couple thousand, right? Maybe even like 5,000 or 6,000. And I'm totally speculating. Canonical people, please don't stab me in the heart with a.
Well, just give it to them. Let's say it's 12,000. Why not? Let's just say it's 12,000.
Right.
Say 10,000.
That's a little more respectable. Like
let's just say it is. Let's say it's 10,000. Let's go with that.
Right.
Because it probably will be soon.
Yeah, this whole thing. Okay, so when last we left Ubuntu, right? Last year we really focused on it. Their thing was, you're going to take our phone, you're going to plug it into some sort of little dock, and it's going to be like your one device to rule them all. Right, the convergence thing. Do you remember that, Chris, or was I
they
in
haven't,
some sort of haze?
No, they haven't lost that. It's just it's on a longer scope.
Really, because I'm looking at their marketing here. This looks like Android. This is a smartphone. This is not. They're not pitching me on convergence.
Well, that's because the current generation of phones aren't really capable of it. That's the problem. Is like, if you remember when they did that Ubuntu Edge, or what was it called? The Ubuntu.
Yes, yeah, the one that yeah.
That was a crazy like sapphire glass quad core 120 gigabyte Rockstar. Like that, still nobody can ship. I mean, not even Apple, even though they had Sapphire glass plants, could ship Sapphire glass.
Well, they're a Sapphire partner, like when it bankrupt, right? And Apple was like, sorry.
Yeah.
What, I'll confess, I don't get how Canonical's like making money here.
Well, so here's the. I think it's a pretty solid strategy if they can get adoption. So the idea would be, is a carrier or a company or and when I say company, I mean like it could be a business like. What if like Jupiter? This is just like let's just go just so that way I don't have to use other names. Let's say Jupiter Broadcasting was like this 500-person company, and we actually had like 30 sales staff, right? Well, I could equip them with a Jupiter Broadcasting equipped Ubuntu phones, and these scopes would have like all of their sales information. It could have all of like because the different scopes are kind of like Google Now cards in a way, but tied more directly into your stuff. And so you could go through them and see, like, here's the sales appointments, here's some media presentations, here's a mini sales kit, here's a video of, like, that we've put together that you could show people on your phone. And it would all be Jupiter Broadcasted branded. It would all be automatically, the image would be ready, set, go to all the Jupiter Broadcasting back-end services. And I would maybe hire Canonical for, $10,000 or something to custom build me this image. Now take that and apply it to somebody that's like much bigger, like a carrier in India. And now you can start to see where they could make some serious money, potentially. And it doesn't even have to be for consumers. It could be just directly to businesses in some cases. And they can also argue the privacy aspect. The entire core of the phone is audible. All the source code is there. So if you're worried about Western government intrusion, take a look at the code. It's all there. It's all GPL. That's the compelling for some people. Canonical's on the hook to support it, I guess, right? I guess,
right. So maybe like you would do
I don't know, because
if
this argument, if you play this argument all the way out to its logical conclusion, then they should be making a ton of money from all the people that are using Ubuntu now.
Well, right. It should be the same argument on the desktop and the laptop and the tablet.
Yeah, I can't reconcile that. Yeah, I don't know.
Right, and how come?
Because there's no carrier contracts there, right? These are carriers they're going to go to.
Yeah, but there's already so many Android device makers nipping at the heels of the carriers to kind of get them to. I hope I'm wrong. That magical third horse would be great in this race, but
and you know what I think is really going to be devastating is Android One. Right, because Android One, the hardware is subsidized by Google. They're subsidizing data to the Play Store, so users can download apps from the Play Store with subsidized data. And so I think they're getting the prices down to like $75, and they're going to get them even lower for some of these Android One devices. And Google, I've been reading, I haven't covered it much in any of the shows, but Android One has not disappeared. Google is actually shipping hardware, and they're actually expanding the program right now.
Right, and what about Microsoft's whole scorch the earth, get Windows Phone as cheap as possible for the developing market? Didn't
you notice? I don't know. Maybe you missed this. They just backed Cyanogen. I think Microsoft's given up.
Given up, or are they going to ship like Nokia Android phones?
So before we shift gears to that, I just want to say, so Android One phones always up to date. From Google. These are like Nexus-style updates from Google. All of the latest play apps with cameras and high-end processors because they're subsidized by Google. That in my opinion, what do I know? But in my opinion, that's what Firefox OS and Ubuntu Touch are up against right there. Anyways, so you were saying.
All right. So the model you laid out for Canonical. If that was so good, why didn't they do that like Mr. Mango in the chat room? Awesome name. Why didn't they do that on the desktop years ago and just make like a pseudo-proprietary version of Ubuntu Desktop and give it a support contract and sell it to enterprises?
Well, they were never able to crack the entry points into that market, which were really, they did eventually get to Dell, but it was too late and never enough, right? And same with all the big manufacturers. Like no one person ever really got that. But now they have something they didn't have before. What is going on over there? What is that noise? What are you doing? That tapping? Are you tapping? Are you?
Oh,
what is that? What is that? Yeah, that.
Oh, yeah. Sorry about that. I see the Ubuntu Linux makes my hand shake. It's like a.
So that was
yeah.
you. Yeah. So here's the thing.
Yeah.
All right. So I suspect that the carriers are the big differentiator because they don't have to convince the end user. They just have to sell the carrier something the carrier really wants. And if they can do that, then they get market share. They don't have to convince people to buy the phone because the carrier will give the phone away for free. That's the big difference. That they never had that opportunity on the desktop.
Wait, but in the business environment, we're seeing BYOD. We're not seeing your employer gives you a phone too much anymore.
No, maybe, yeah, for some. But so I think there is some employers where that still happens, and Ubuntu has a good solution there. But I was actually thinking more like just really like get a smartphone for free when you sign up with a 2-year contract, kind of like for direct to consumer kind of stuff. That's where I think to consumers they'll appeal.
So you're thinking this is actually, see, I didn't even see this at all as a consumer play.
I think not initially, but I think after it gets some polish and it gets more apps and, the OS has been updated a couple of times, I think it could fill that role pretty well.
What is the story about like develop for Ubuntu phone and it works on desktop? Is there a story or is it like a Microsoft style universal?
There are actually legitimate. I would not say they do not look totally desktop friendly to me, but there are legitimate like QML based apps like music players and video players and web browsers that work on the phone and on the desktop. In fact, there's some really good demo videos. Let's see, Ubuntu Touch demo video. There's some really good videos that show it, but I don't know. Yeah, here we go. So here's one that's from February. So that's pretty recent, from February 12th. And you have video playback here, so I don't know how loud this is, but here we go. I'll play this for you.
This is a demonstration of the convergence features that are built right into the heart of the Ubuntu SDK. Here you can see that we've got the phone and the tablet, both running exactly the same application. This is called Karma Machine, and it was the winner of the last Ubuntu App Showdown. This is an application that is a Reddit client. It provides an easy...
So you see how on the tab... So, and then, of course, that's how it looks on the tablet would pretty much be how it looks on the desktop, too. I don't know. What do you think of that?
All right, so it is very akin to the universal app thing that Microsoft is doing.
Yeah.
I wish them all the luck. I
feel like this is actually a little more legitimate. You just write the app. It's using Qt and QML. It's...
I think the other thing too is like I've seen them over the years do so many like this is it, like we're going commercial, we're gonna. Chris, don't you have an Ubuntu TV in your bedroom? Like how many times? I don't know. Maybe I don't buy it. I'm sorry.
Here's another screenshot. Here's what their core music application might look like across the laptop, tablet, and phone. What do you think of that?
That looks very nice. Like that is a very good looking app.
Yeah. I'm not totally... See, here's why I don't think it's totally crazy. They have to recreate a lot of the wheel to do this. But, like, for example, for, like, their file manager and for, like, their terminal application, they're embedding existing Qt and KDE technology. Like, for their terminal, it's console. It's console in their own Qt, QML, whatever, wrapper. But they're not, like, creating a terminal from whole cloth. They're using a very good terminal. So if that is sort of the beauty of their open source approach here is they're going to be able to pull in these components that other projects are maintaining that are doing a really good job working on. And like things like console will continue to be worked on for a long time, integrating that into their software. So they're just having to do the trim around it. And it seems feasible to me. I'll tell you right now, it's definitely not at a point where I can use it for very long. I use it for a little bit and then I usually jump back to Android. But
I listen. I think we've been beating it to death, but I wish them tons of luck.
You sound skeptical.
You know what? I was really optimistic about the original Dell Sputnik, but then they couldn't get it down to a reasonable price.
Did you know I got an XPS 13?
The new one, the 12-inch.
Yeah. Well, it's 11 inches, but you get like 13 inches of screen space and like an 11-inch housing because it's edge to edge glass, which is really nice. It's a high DPI display as well. and I've been running Linux on it to some success. I had to replace the wireless card, and the sound doesn't work unless I have external USB audio. And I got to tell you, it's a pretty good laptop, but it's still not as nice as a MacBook. There's seams, which is just, it's so petty. It doesn't.
Right.
If this stuff doesn't bother you, it is such a great little laptop.
It looks
And you know
nice.
what else? You know what else burns me? They said 15 hours of battery life, and all of the reviews say the same thing. It's more like 8 hours of battery life. How do they get away
with
with
no
that?
Wi-Fi, no Bluetooth, the screen black?
Yeah, and maybe
you know,
with the i5 instead of the i7 too.
Right. Yeah, I think we should leave it for today because
All right,
we're
Mr.
just gonna.
Dominic.
Yeah.
Very good.
All
So
right.
I hope you have a great week, and maybe the news fairies will bring us something really interesting to talk about next week, or maybe the audience will send us something interesting to talk about. Go over to jupiterbroadcasting.com/contact. Choose Coda Radio from the drop-down, or go to codaradio.reddit.com. Mr. Dominic, do you want to send anywhere? Anybody, anywhere?
Just at Dumanuko on Twitter.
Very good. And assuming I figured out how to edit this episode and release it before next week, join us, won't you? We do the show Monday, noon Pacific, 3 p.m. Eastern, over at jblive.tv. You can go to jupiterbroadcasting.com/calendar to get this converted to your local time zone. And why don't you follow me on Twitter, twitter.com/ChrisLAS. All right, everybody. See you right back here next week